Hello and welcome to another episode of Literary Gladiators, the show where we discuss and debate literature in all of its forms. If it's written work, it's game. Let's meet the panel.
Hi, I'm Larry.
I'm Dan.
I'm Tara.
And I'm Josh. And Dan, this is your first episode back and your 15th season in a row.
Yep.
Welcome back, Dan.
Glad to be back.
And I like your shirt. It's the periodic table of horror movies.
Yes, I like horror movies.
Okay, I know that you do, on Facebook, you do this whole thing of ranking. You do like a countdown of all different things.
Originally it started out as a ranking of like my favorite, then my least favorite, then it was just like hidden gems. Now it's just like, I just put whatever movie I want and talk about it that day.
Okay, let me see that. Psycho, Nosferatu, oh, okay.
Yeah, they're all broken up into different things. You got slasher, creepy kids, mad scientists, psychopaths, anthologies.
Misery's
Shaun of the
interesting.
Dead.
Yeah.
Something.
Those ones are classics over there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You have The Fly, you saw.
Dracula.
Yeah. Thanks to my friend Dylan for getting me this shirt.
Alrighty then.
Hey, what about my shirt?
Oh,
It's got some good advice on there.
Enjoy Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
things go better with Coca-Cola. Okay. I think about those. The Fortunes did commercials for they were a British music band, and they were the spokespeople. They sang songs about Coca-Cola.
Oh, is that the ones that I'd like to buy the world a Coke?
I don't
You know
think,
that one?
I don't think it was that.
Wait.
I don't think that was them.
I'd like to teach the world to sing
No,
in perfect harmony.
that wasn't them.
That wasn't me.
They sang the "It's the Real Thing."
Oh, yeah.
They did a version of "You Got Your Troubles," but with using the encouragement of Coca-Cola.
Oh, okay. Very good.
And Tara has a very nice summer dress.
Yes.
Yep.
Exquisite.
But I'm wearing leggings to keep it casual.
We're going to be going over one of Tara's selections today. We're going to be going over The Frog King or Iron Henry, also known as The Frog Prince. This version was collected by the brothers Grimm. And do you have a discussion starter?
Yes, I do. What do you think of the symbolism of the band around faithful Henry's heart?
Very interesting. That was...
Yeah, that one, okay, so I was wondering what the Iron Henry was when I was reading the entire book. I was like, when does it get to the Iron Henry? And then we meet that Henry was a loyal servant to the prince.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe, like, the band, I feel like, so we don't really know why the prince became a frog in the first place.
In this version, no.
Yeah, or at least the version I read.
Mm-hmm.
I think the bands around his heart was, the thing is that he was probably had some part, or was like the reason for why the prince got turned into a frog, and maybe he felt regret, so that was his way of like having punishment to, like, you know, keep his heart in check, and the thing is he put like the iron bands around it.
And perhaps to stay loyal to the prince's cause.
Yes, whatever. Because we were never told like why he was turned into a frog, at least in the main version. So things I feel like maybe that was his way of like staying loyal to the prince despite him being a frog, and he mentions that he felt regret. So I think like that was him, like, you know, punishing himself or trying to atone for his mistake or regret.
According to the text, it's when his master was changed into a frog, trusty Henry had grieved so much that he had bound 3 iron bands round his heart for fear it would break with grief and sorrow.
Yeah.
Which it's hyperbolic, where it exaggerates the truth some, but...
Yeah, we actually hear them snap though, so there had to be something physical.
That's what I mean, like, when they break free, they snap.
Yeah, his heart was swelling, so it was just...
So they're holding his heart together for the purpose of helping him with his grief, but then when his heart is fully healed, it breaks free from the chains. That's interesting. Yeah.
One thing that really stuck out to me is, how old do you think this princess was? Because to me, she acted like a preschooler or someone who was 5 or 6 years old.
I mean, how beautiful was she actually really?
Well, also, because she liked her golden ball and she liked to throw it up in the air and catch it.
There's a lot that was a little bit weird about this book.
Yeah.
Like, for example, alright, we've always heard the stories of, like, the princess finding a frog. Normally, for, like, versions that I remember reading, like, especially as a kid, is that you kiss the frog and it turns into a prince. You don't throw it against a wall and it turns into a prince. What were the conditions for this curse that it can be broken by just throwing them against a wall?
And why the prince, when the frog turns back into a prince, after being thrown to the wall, his head would probably hurt and he'd say, "Screw you."
Yeah, why would you want to marry her afterwards? Like, all I'm saying is, like, a lot of this doesn't, like, was, like,
unless you're viewing it allegorically, because there's a lot that can be, like, it could, I mean, in today's standards, it can be viewed in different, like, you have the forced marriage, you have the whole idea of him stepping his boundaries. However, he said he would do something for her, but he wanted to be compensated for what he did. He
wanted friendship and companionship, and she just, on surface level, said, "Oh, he's ugly." She's very surface level character, not written surface, but her personality is surface level.
She's a bit shallow.
And
I'm not a bit shallow. She is very shallow.
She's something else.
Yeah.
There's also the whole thing about, like, keeping a promise. If you make a promise to someone, being like, "Hey, I'll pay you Tuesday
for hamburger today."
I wasn't gonna go with that, but yeah, let's go with that. All right, you should probably pay them Tuesday.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, now that I agree with. I agree with that. Part of it, whereas she is definitely not taking her oath seriously, and that's the problem. I mean, not wanting to share your food with a frog. I don't hold that against her.
Yeah, all you need is just flies.
I thought the frog was funny with the way that he came up to the house.
It was a flip.
I wonder how he knocked on the door. That's what I want to know.
He probably jumped up and went.
Also, if he just threw himself into the door, would he have turned back into a prince?
He turned himself.
I'm still confused about the whole wall thing.
I don't understand. I think maybe it's showing how she was being just throwing, not thinking, "Oh, he's just a frog," and throwing him out, and then whatever.
I think it could
the
be.
Curse was.
It might be. You could even see it tongue in cheek the way it could have been a bit filthier than meets the. It could be viewed in a more an aggressive kind of. But that also
been, yeah.
Because we only view the princess as being like a young kid because that's the way she acts. Allegedly, she was supposed to be the age of the prince, or at the very she was supposed to be. I would imagine she was older.
Yeah.
Or at least old enough to marry.
Well, in 1800s, I mean, what was the age of marriage?
Age of consent was 10, back in at least the 19th century. However, I don't think it was that kind of. I think the way it's perceived, it seemed like she was old enough to marry.
Okay, so yeah,
But
that's what it would have been back then.
Oh.
But her actions.
It wouldn't have been talking about sex outside of marriage. I mean, it would have been assumed that it would be for someone to get married at that age. Like if the age was 10, then that's when they would be expected to be married, because they wouldn't be expected to be having sex outside of wedlock.
The prime example of that. That's kind of a relationship that Walt Whitman had, because Walt Whitman had a relationship with a much younger man. Edgar Allan Poe was with a much younger woman. There was Mark Twain had interest in much younger girls, but going back to this, but it seemed like this frog he more so wanted love.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I want to believe, that he wanted love.
Well, yeah, I think so.
And that, because that's the way he seemed to perceive himself, and that leads to, there could have been weary complications on the princess's behalf, because the Little Red Riding Hood has been viewed as an allegory for a woman and a predator.
Yeah, strange danger.
Yes, but a sexual predator, not necessarily just a don't talk to strangers kind of thing.
I mean, you could still put it in the same category.
You can, but with I think that a lot it's just very interesting, because this is not necessarily the story that people are told, and that's one of many examples as far as both the Brothers Grimm and Hans Christian Andersen are concerned, and just fairy tales in general.
Oh yeah, well, a lot of them have been like rewritten so many times. It had different interpretations that, like we all have become known to mainly the Disney version of what these stories originally were. All right, and the thing is, when we read the actual book, we realize, oh, these are a lot darker than what we thought they were.
Yeah, and
this
plus
one,
Disney, it wants to cater to like children.
And not even because Disney's version is The Princess and the Frog from 2009 or 2010, because I think it was 2009, because by 2010 it was really had attention.
Oh yeah, well, I think that was like their last drawn movie.
Yes.
So I think it was like 2009.
Traditional animation rather than CGI. But the one I remember, the Muppets version of the Frog Prince, and this is pre-Muppet Muppets. I think this was Robin's first appearance in the Muppet franchise. I remember that version where a witch turned him into a frog.
Same thing with this version I read, the witch turned him into a frog. But that's also another question I have too, is that we are never told why the witch turned him into a frog in the first place. Did he like slight the witch in some way, or was just the witch just, turning people into frogs for no reason? Because from what we've seen of Grimm stories, when a witch does something, there's a reason for the witch doing it, you know?
Yeah, kind of like in Beauty and the Beast, where she was disguised as a beggar and was the Beast slammed the door in her face.
Yeah, because she was ugly. And the thing is, then she's like, I will turn you into a hideous beast, and the thing is, the only thing that can break this curse is to find someone who loves you despite your hideous appearance. And the thing is, that makes me wonder, what is it that the prince did against the witch? Maybe he was, a noble prince, and he just, was trying to help someone, and it went against the witch, so she turned him into a frog. I don't know. It just... I feel like there was some information there that we could have had more of.
Or he could have, oh, hey, what's up, lady? And then, she didn't want any of it, so turn him into a frog. And
also, explain the additions of the curse, because I really want to know how throwing a frog against the wall turned him into a prince. It feels like, would it have been any type of physical violence, or was it just that she had to touch him in some way? Because I think it's the first time she actually touched the guy at all, the frog.
Yeah, maybe that's what did it.
Maybe we needed a human touch or something.
Of any kind, even if it was rough.
Yeah. I don't know, it just, the conditions of, how he turned back into a prince just seemed weird to me, because I'm always so used to, kissing the frog and it turns into a prince, kind of thing.
That's sort of like touching, too, because you're touching with your lips.
That's true. I don't know, it's just, it feels weird, the things that he's a frog, and the thing is,
Yeah.
I can't say, okay, a human touch, but the thing is, would anyone have touched him actually turn him into a prince, or did it have to be a woman,
Or did it have to be the woman who dropped her golden ball into the water and then had the frog go down and get it? Maybe it was very specific to that girl.
Yeah, true.
And then just, the ending, too, it just, once he turns into a prince, everything is perfectly, it just jumps completely into everything is all fine and dandy, and then we shift into Iron Henry coming in.
Yeah, it's like what do you want to say? It's like a postscript, right? It's like after the story.
And he really has no connection to the story either.
Yeah.
Also, how do you find them? I feel like the thing is, like, the story should have focused on the Frog Prince, right? And led to him turning back into a prince. Then cut back and go to Iron Henry of what he was doing this entire time, and then have the two swords collide at the end. Like, that would have been a way better story.
Oh yeah.
I think there was a lot that.
I mean, maybe like someone could, you know, rework the story and.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Give us Iron Henry's
Has
story.
Iron Henry ever
do-
been worked into this story in any capacity?
You just mentioned it at the end, honestly.
Isn't
I mean, has he ever been in any of the
In
Frog
any
Prince adaptations? Has
Oh.
Iron Henry ever? Because I don't recall anything.
No, I don't
Neither.
think I've ever heard of him in any Frog Prince adaptations ever.
And I found it like in the Shrek series. It was interesting that Princess Fiona's father was the Frog Prince.
Yeah. The joke about that is that he was turned into a human by a fairy godmother, and the thing
Yeah.
is, like, you know, that's how he became a human.
Yeah, it was, and it took. I didn't get it on the first time, but after watching it, because after seeing their interaction, then I realized that that's why he turned into a frog, is because he was the Frog Prince.
I got that. I know it was a frog prince. I just assumed the thing was a frog, and the thing is, like, because I've always known the story of, like, kissing the frog and it turns into a prince kind of thing. So I assumed it was like one of those stories. I didn't know it was like supposed to be that frog prince story.
I mean, you saw that a lot of that in the Shrek series because Princess Fiona's curse meant that she would begin to reflect whatever her true love.
Yeah, be a human or ogre.
Yeah, and because she went with Shrek, she became an ogre. But
I don't know. I know Joseph Campbell was interested in this story because I haven't read all of Hero of 10. Was it the Hero with 10,000 Faces? It's Joseph Campbell's book, and it's like a meta book about stories, and he uses this early on in that as an example. And according to him, the golden ball represents the girl's soul. When the Frog Prince has got to go down and actually touch the soul of the princess, and that's what happens, and that's why he becomes worthy of returning to being a prince. Because until then, he's he's something else. He's not a man. He's less than a man.
I think that there's got to be a metaphor or an allegory that allows this to make sense.
Well, yeah, it's interesting about, like, these stories, and we look at them now and we can say, oh, well, maybe this means that and that means this, but at the time it was probably just something you just told your kids so that they'd go to sleep.
I mean, I've said this before with Brothers Grimm, is that most of their stories were technically cautionary tales or mostly allegories. Yeah, some of them were actually, like, stories, but some of them, like, usually were like, don't talk to strangers, don't do this,
Don't lie.
Substance over beauty, like, all those things. So, I feel like there is something here, like, maybe, hold on to your promises or whatnot or something like that.
Yeah, but
because
the only reason, I guess that's true, because then she does get the prince in the end, and she does keep her promise even though it's reluctant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess maybe, like, even still reluctance of, like, you finally gave in to, keeping your promise, and the thing is then you were rewarded with something.
Yeah.
So I think, like, maybe it's just, like, somebody does something for you, it's best to, like, pay them back in some way.
Yeah, that would probably be the moral. That's a good point.
Yeah. That's why I got from it. Other than that, the thing is, like, story-wise, I'm very confused about all the stuff that's happening in it.
I agree. I think that it was very weirdly put together, and I was left with a lot of question marks. I think that further adaptations probably gave it a much more clearer flow and a greater concentration, because I agree with you, where if Iron Henry had a bigger role in this story, in the fairy tale, I think that he would have been his character would be useful.
Yeah.
But he doesn't. He just pops up at the end.
Yeah.
And his character's supposed to be viewed to us as useful, but you had that opportunity and you didn't take it.
Yeah, and like the iron bands around his heart, I want to know the thing is, how did they physically get iron bands on his heart?
That could have been, they could have made that into a very fascinating story, but they really they just said it at the end.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, Iron Henry had bands around his heart.
It was snapping.
I assume the thing is that they were like,
if Ari narrated
like,
it, that'd be hysterical.
The one thing it tells us,
metaphorically, as I thought they were,
Mm-hmm.
but then it turns out they're actually real because we actually hear them snap.
the one thing it tells us is how loved this prince was. Right? That's the one thing that we can say is that the people who knew him really loved him. You know, I mean that. But other than that, doesn't really serve any purpose.
It was just telling us that he was loved, not showing.
Also, wasn't the kingdom being chaos with the prince missing?
Huh?
I don't know, like he was turned into he was turned into a frog. I'm pretty sure the kingdom would have been in chaos if the prince was missing, or if they knew they was turned into a frog, because no one was watching the frog.
Yeah, the frog got away. Why didn't the frog stick around and be like, don't worry, guys, we'll figure this out?
Reminds me of those. You remember Super Mario 3?
Yeah.
Where in each of the levels, the king has been transformed into some kind of hideous creature of some sort, be it like some whatever, like a gorilla-like monster. There was one of them was some kind of, I don't know what it was, that looked like some tribble on a vine, I think it was.
Oh yeah, they turn them into like different things. I never really got that far into the game, but I remember like getting to like one of the kings, I think.
I've gotten to a few of them, but then you have the level that lets you exceed all the way to level 7, and I've had a difficult time getting past that.
No, that one's a difficult one to do.
You talking about NES?
Super Nintendo.
Oh, okay.
Nintendo. Super Nintendo.
But I mean, that's what it kind of those kingdom. That's what it going into a kingdom going into chaos when your ruler has been transformed into something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be interesting. You know, like why didn't he stay? He could have sat in his throne. Like Ribbit. Hello. I call the court to order here. You know.
Already.
But I guess they decided that they couldn't have a frog as a king. They just said they'd rather have no king.
Alrighty then. Do we have any final thoughts?
I think it's not my favorite Brothers Grimm story. All right. I do like the allegory that it has in it. It's just there's a lot as like a story itself from face value that is missing and kind of needs answers. I like the allegory that's trying to give, but I feel the thing is that there's not much substance to the story itself. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yes. I think that there's different ways that this can be interpreted. I'm not sure what the exact answer is, and if there is, I think that with certain instances, I think that there are stronger, like with different approaches that can be taken to this, or that can be put upon this. I think that you can find a Grimm tale that does it better, like Little Red Riding Hood is for if you see the frog as a swindler. But I think we like to see. I think the way that the frog has good intentions and the princess is either confused or just shallow-minded.
Yeah.
Or just selfish.
You
She
know,
doesn't want to.
or immature, because her father, we like to think, means well. If he's trying to teach her good.
Yeah. Keep your promises.
Yeah.
We know she's rich. She has a ball of gold.
She probably got like spoiled. So like maybe he realized that I spoiled this girl. Maybe she needs to be taught a lesson, and she needs to keep her promises. She wasn't all that beautiful to be like. She's not all that beautiful that. Yeah, she might look beautiful, but she wasn't beautiful.
Hey, tell that to the son, okay?
Alrighty then. If you're interested in reading this and other Grimm fairy tales, I have the Barnes & Noble Classics edition.
I like her edition.
Yours is the golden...
Mine is the Fingerprint Classics. edition.
Wow, it's a nice book. Very nice.
Complete. It's complete. So.
Got 'em all.
Mine is complete too, but it doesn't say it. But
it is.
Okay.
Because Barnes and Nobles did complete stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yes, they. Yeah, I would say they generally do because Hans Christian Andersen and Aesop, they do complete. Not all the time though, because there are some collections just selected. When it says selected, it's only a few. Mm-hmm. I prefer complete.
Me too.
Alrighty then. Be sure to join us next time on another episode of Literary Gladiators. For now, keep reading
and enjoy Coke.